I don't know. There's not. I remember being an RBT, being like really scared when people found out that I was a lesbian, especially like the parents. Is like you don't know like what they're gonna say, what they're gonna do.
You are one of the few BCBAs who really talk about behavior analysis with a keen focus on sexual pleasure and liberation.
Yes.
Why do you think the field has been so quiet for so long on those topics, and why are you so vocal?
I think the field has been so quiet about this primarily because we work with children. And I think it's very uncomfortable for people to even see children as humans. So that, especially for so many women, we're not even taught to consider what is pleasurable to us. We're just taught to perform. And
Yes.
so then I started like applying that to behavior analysis because I'm like, if I know I can teach just about any behavior, I'm sure I can kind of activate.
Can we just start with this quote? If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things that you don't see. Let's talk about that. Hi, I'm Dom, the BCBA mom, and welcome back to my channel. We have another amazing treat for you today, straight out of Detroit, and her degrees are hotter than your group chats. So she has her bachelor's in psychology and gender and women's studies. She has her master's in counseling with a focus in ABA. She is a BCBA and currently slaying her doctoral program at Arizona State University. She is a Black, lesbian, cisgender powerhouse who leads with an unapologetic intersectional lens rooted in Black liberation, the host of Love, Sex, and Applied Behavior Analysis podcast, and creator of Becoming Unforgettable, period, where science meets pleasure and defiance becomes data. This queen is shifting the culture. She is the current vice president of Black Applied Behavior Analysis, co-founder of Behavior Analysis in Military Families. Let's talk about that. And a radical self-love activist who lives by the quote of James Baldwin, if I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things that you do not see. So everyone make some noise for the wonderful Cammie Williams.
Hello. I feel like that makes me sound a lot more like special
You
than,
are
than what I
special.
am.
Oh, can we just start with this quote? If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things that you don't see. This is how Cammie and I became like this, right? There was a time where, we found each other on social media. We followed each other on social media. And at one point I was like, oh, I just onboarded 20 new clients. I just did this. I just did this. I'm doing all of these things. At this point, you didn't even know that I was pregnant at the time. I was going
Yeah.
through like a lot of sickness, but I was just like bragging on all of the things that I was doing. And everybody was positive reinforcement, like accolades, accolades. And only one person texted me on the side and said, Dom, are you okay? And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And she says, okay, I'm gonna text you every week and I'm gonna ask you, what did you say no to today? And it
Huh?
shifted the way, it almost brought me to tears because nobody applauds you for putting your boundaries up, for taking care of yourself, for saying no, for saying, I'm not working for 3 months. Like you're called lazy, you're called like all the
Yeah.
things. And Kim
Mhm.
saw me all the way from Hawaii at the time. I lived in Hawaii. And she says, I'm going
Yeah.
to text you every week. And so now I was getting ready for her texts. And I'm like, let me tell you what I said no to. Hey, let me tell you what I so
Yeah.
she made me conscious of what I didn't see. And that is that I was leading down a path of burnout and just doing all of these things that were not healthy for me. So for
Mhm.
I know I mentioned that to you before, but for that, I just want to say thank you because you was the you were the first person that ever reinforced my saying no behavior.
Yeah. I mean, because it's almost like I think, especially as Black women, but I would argue women, period, we get so much praise for like doing the most. And
Yeah.
so it's even kind of hard to like shift your brain away from that, where you're like, oh, like, is it actually okay for me to like take time for myself? Or is it okay for me to say no to this? And so we end up kind of almost like doing these things almost like thoughtlessly. And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, wait a second, like, don't come at me. I know we don't know each other like that, but are you okay?
Are you okay?
Yes.
I love that. So, yes, I was not okay then, and you caught it. And ever since then, I have been just keeping that in the back of my mind. And now I incorporate that into my supervision, into the things that I put on my plate and the things that I say no to, the things that I allow my kids to say no to. I have a 3-year-old now, and her favorite word is no. And usually back in the day, a no would get you popped. But now I'm like,
Yes.
well, what do you want to do? Well, why not? Well, show me.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, So those were
Mhm.
powerful. That was powerful in the moment, and it still is. So thank you for that. Let's get right into our interview because we have so much to talk about. All right. When you are not in BCBA mode, who are you? Who is Cammie Williams?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I like to call myself like a sensitive, and I use that as a noun. I'm a deeply emotional, deeply sensitive person. I'm a lazy overachiever. Um, and my new baseline, or I'm trying to create this new baseline of like, I'm just nothingness, of like, like, I'm the kind of person where, like, the second I wake up, my brain is on, I'm already like, go, 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 go. And I'm really trying to be better at just like slowing down, being more mindful of everything I'm doing. Which is very, very hard for me because again, I'm like, well, I need to do this, I need to do that. Or like I wake up so early in the morning. So I'm like, oh, my brain is on, like, I'm awake. But where that kind of comes into like that sensitivity is like if I'm not careful, I can take on so much like of people's emotions, of people's issues, making things mine that are not my own. And so I'm trying to be in this state of like at my baseline, nothingness, and then I can more actively like choose what I'm going to engage in.
Love that baseline because at baseline, I feel like I'm working 3 jobs, and then
Yes.
add something, then you're productive, right?
Yeah.
Baseline is nothingness, doing nothing, not even
Hmm.
writing out my schedule for the day, like doing
Yes.
nothing.
Yep. Yep. I'm
I'm,
always trying
I'm
to put
taking
like nothingness.
that.
Like literally, I'll put it on my calendar. So I'm also so type A. So I'm like, oh, this is my time for nothing. Because I'm like, let me at least schedule it. Because at least that also will hold me accountable too, where I'm like, I'm blocking it off. Like no one can add meetings to my calendar, whatever the case may be. So yeah,
I love, oh, we're going to get into all of that. Okay. What is something that people often get wrong about you?
that I'm not sensitive. I think so. My public persona is very similar. It's really the same as my personal persona. And literally, like if you ask my parents, this has always been me. Like I've always been like this little like activist, this little like that's unjust.
I love
And really like justice is a huge thing for me. And so I think because of my delivery, sometimes I think people don't think of me as deeply sensitive. And really what it is that I'm so on people's heads about these social injustices because I'm so sensitive, like because I have like this deep love for people and for humanity. And so I think people forget that. And I think it's okay for me to remind them of that. And it's okay for me to remind them that, like, I don't have to present a certain way. I don't have to perform in order for you to also see my humanity.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably like the primary thing that people forget or just don't know or believe that I'm as sensitive as I am.
I can see that because once I really care about something, I don't care how it comes out. Like I'm defending this person. I am advocating for this person. I'm standing up for this person. And it may seem like, well, dang,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah,
my care is shifted towards this marginalized community, not your
that,
feelings right now. My care
that,
is towards my clients or my children,
yeah,
myself, and setting boundaries.
yep,
And people get real mad when you say no, right? They don't,
yes.
right. They think you're kind of cold and heartless, the devil wears
Mm-hmm.
Prada, like all,
Yeah.
but it is because you feel you have all.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Well,
can,
and nowhere in history too have people like passively like gotten reinforced for saying no. You know what I mean? Like it's not even effective. And so it's like, well, I'm not saying that like every situation deserves or will be met with like sheer force, whatever that looks like. But you know what I mean? I'm like, but it's okay for us as women to like find our voice, to use our voice. And especially like you said, like this is on behalf of like marginalized people. Why on earth would I like be silent about that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Or be nice. Excuse me, do you think
Yes,
stop with all of
yes.
yeah. No, I
Yep.
get that. I get that. Okay, that's good. Okay. So you are one of the few BCBAs who really talk about behavior analysis with a keen focus on sexual pleasure and liberation.
Yes.
Why do you think the field has been so quiet for so long on those topics, and why are you so vocal?
I think the field has been so quiet about this primarily because we work with children. And I think it's very uncomfortable for people to even see children as humans. So, like, even when you were talking about your daughter and like honoring her saying no, like, that's such a huge thing because you said, like, most of us as children, we were to be seen and not heard. And we definitely weren't talking about, sex or anything like that until we may have gotten to a certain age or what have you. And so I think one, it's just really important that as behavior analysts, that we really are acquiring scopes in the way that our clients need. So like, depending on how old your client is, they may already be there. Or like it may be coming, right? And I think it's okay to just desensitize ourselves to that reality, especially too, because like the research shows, like we are literally born kind of inherently with these like sexual feelings. And so I just think it's important to kind of normalize that. I really like talking about like sexual pleasure, especially as a means specifically of like Black liberation, in that I think that we know, like, as far as like post-traumatic slave syndrome, especially for us as Black people, pleasure, especially as a means specifically of like Black liberation, in that I think that we know, like, as far as like post-traumatic slave syndrome, especially for us as Black women, something like about pleasure is so almost foreign to us.
Mhm.
I know with my personal history, so as you know, I had ovarian cancer when I was 16, and although I've been in remission since then, throughout my 20s, I had endometriosis and fibroids and reoccurring tumors. And so that resulted in me at 27 or 28 needing to get a hysterectomy. And so, quite literally, what happens to your body when you have a hysterectomy, especially when you're so young, kind of compared to like if you were kind of older, closer to like that normal menopause age,
Yeah.
literally you go into menopause. So that includes things like vaginal dryness, that includes things like hot flashes, and so quite literally, like I'm 35, but hormonally, I'm literally like in my 60s or 70s. And so I was engaged at that time. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this because it's medically necessary, but at what cost, right? And so I'm like, we're about to get married. Like I don't want my partner to like I felt so much guilt where I'm like, I know she's not like putting it on me, but I'm like, I can't perform for her. You know what I mean? And so I really went through this severe kind of weird kind of place where I was so happy to be out of pain, but
Yeah.
so like, but who am I, especially if even within my marriage, like I'm not feeling like aroused, like I'm not. And so then I started to really like utilize the science on myself. And I read this book, actually, this is the workbook for it. But this book by Dr. Emily Nagoski is called Come As You Are. And then she has like this little workbook. And this changed my brain chemistry because it helped me, one, understand that like there was nothing, wrong with me. I was normal. But that, especially for so many women, we're not even taught to consider what is pleasurable to us. We're just taught to perform. And
Yes.
so then I started like applying that to like mindfulness and again, kind of incorporating relational frame theory and behavior analysis because I'm like, if I know I can teach just about any behavior, I'm sure I can kind of activate by like just opening my awareness to like what brings me pleasure. I can like shape this. I can literally shape this experience. And so truly like from my own like personal experience, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's possible. Like I'm not doomed. Other people aren't doomed.
Yeah.
It's also okay for me like, oh, I don't like that because at that point in life, I don't even know if I even felt empowered, with previous people that I may have been with to even say like no to things or to even consider
Mm,
like, do I like this or am I again just performing? And so I'm like in this space, period, I think where I'm like, I'm done performing in whatever way. I
yeah.
really want to show up authentically me. I know that pleasure is so important. I really think that it's a huge kind of correlation between like pleasure and liberation. And so I was like, well, let's just throw the science into it. Like, I know that we can do this. And so truly, like, it kind of started with like intervening on myself.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I think other people can benefit from this in various ways, not necessarily just like, with sexual pleasure, but just pleasure, period. Like, how are we consuming? How are we producing? How are we doing these things? And how can we be more mindful doing it?
Oh, I love that. I feel like I went most of my life, and we've talked about this. I've been on Cammie's podcast, and we
Yep.
talked about how we're both PKs, preachers'
Yes.
kids, and what that looks like. And I was even thinking, like, for like the first, I don't know, half of my life, even going into my marriage, I was uncomfortable with sex. I was
Yes.
uncomfortable with my body. I was uncomfortable because it's like the church almost told you that it was bad, it was a sin. And then when you see it outside of the church, it wasn't like the woman was receiving pleasure.
Yes.
So I was just so confused about it for so long. I'm like, this is what everybody's talking about. Like, what's the hype?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
till I got older in my 30s, and I'm like, I'm not going to be doing this sweating out my hair for nothing. Like,
Yes.
I need
Yes.
to get something out of this.
Yes.
Just having those conversations that, right, like this doesn't have to be a performance.
Mhm.
This should be a value of yours. This should fulfill
Yes.
you in some way. Just like that first sip of coffee in the morning, how
Yes.
this is how this should feel. Not only
Absolutely.
that, predominantly I work with adults. And
Hmm.
it's almost so taboo to even talk about it, right? Like if a client came up to me now and they said, I'm interested in having sex, everybody would be like, don't talk about that. You can't say that
Yes.
or write it up in the behavior plan. That's natural. You can't have
Hmm.
sex with me, but we can talk about your
Exactly.
options. So the
Exactly.
fact that you are bringing the science into this, not just sexual pleasure, but pleasure in general, this is what we need.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting too, because we're in this place, kind of going back to what you were saying about your clients, where like we see that like Love on the Spectrum is so famous, that show, right? But we again are forgetting like these are whole adults, like whole human beings. And not only is it inherently kind of ableist for us to kind of strip them of that part of their humanity, it's like ethically even kind of inappropriate because it's like I'm supposed to be servicing like you in a way that's socially significant to
Yeah.
you that is socially
Yes.
significant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We can get on that topic. Like that's a whole CEU.
Yes.
So, but let's say if you were talking to the everyday BCBA or non-BCBA, what should everyone understand about ABA and sexual pleasure? I know you do give a talk on this, but if you
Mhm.
had to give it to us in 3 points, what we should know, what are those?
Number one, I think that as behavior analysts, we need to remember that we are behavioral scientists. Like this is a science. So nothing about anything about sex or sexual pleasure is even defined. Like it goes with the science. Like there's science and there's research and there's data on it. I think the second thing I would say is like, yeah, I think the second thing I would say is to remember truly the importance, especially when we're talking about vulnerability, any of our vulnerability, right? So, like, our clients may be more susceptible to abuse and to harm if we also aren't kind of teaching them, again, in a way that's appropriate, like for their age and, all this stuff, really like the simple ways to like express what you want, to express your displeasure, and things like that.
Uh,
And I think the third thing too is that it's okay, like if this isn't within your scope. So I think as behavior analysts, we sometimes think like everything is within our scope when the reality is most of us, myself included, we got our supervision before passing our boards working with typically one subsect of people and populations, probably in a very kind of specific way. And so it's also okay to consult and it's okay just research out. And then fourth, I'll add this fourth one, and this is, I think, the biggest one.
Give it
I
to us.
think you have to be able to use this on yourself. So, like a lot of my CEUs now, it's no longer about like my clinical practice. It really is me trying to bring the science to us as everyday adults, because I think sometimes we forget like we literally are not only, stimuli in our own environment, but like there's so much stimuli around us, and it's okay for us to kind of play around with like, how can we manipulate these variables in our environment to kind of prop different behavior changes? And so I always recommend, I'm like, please, 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 like utilize this, but on yourself first, so you can even kind of see like, oh, like this is what this is like. This is how I can really apply this science to myself.
I love that. I love that. It reminds me of that trend where Black people were like, oh, guys, we're frolicking. We're
Yes,
frolicking. And they're
yes,
running around and just having fun, like engaging with the stimuli in our environment,
yes.
rolling around in the grass, just doing what
Uh-huh.
you want to do if it
Yes,
pleases you.
yes. I think there's something very beautiful about just engaging in play. And I'm like, you guys, like we probably
Ah,
consult with OTs. We see them doing like sensory stuff. Like they're not doing it because these kids are autistic. They're doing it because as humans, we need this kind of sensory like input and output. So
yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Ah, I love that so much. Okay. So, has your experience as a Black lesbian BCBA shifted the way you approach behavior analysis, supervision, or training others?
Absolutely. When I first passed my boards, I was in Hawaii, and it was a really interesting experience being Black in Hawaii. So there's actually a very big population, like on the island that we were on, probably because like the military base, and a lot of people end up retiring there. But it was really interesting feeling different than what it was like on the mainland. So like when I was in Hawaii, I didn't have as present of like a fear of like the police, or as present of a fear as racism, but it still was there, So it would kind of almost like catch you off guard though, because it wasn't, at least in my experience, as like in your face. When it came to my lesbian identity though, I was very reinforced and comfortable and all that stuff, kind of similarly to like how I am like in white spaces where I'm like, my lesbian identity gets all the reinforcement, but again, the Black one doesn't. And so it's kind of figuring out like, how to kind of navigate. Well, what that looks like for me is I just decided again to be my whole self. Like I want to be, like Denisha always says, like I'm a whole Black woman. I'm gonna be
Ah,
myself.
Denisha.
Yes, and I'm going to give people permission to do the same. And so I had four Black, now they're all BCBAs, three, excuse me. And it was really interesting kind of modeling like what that could look like for them, how
Mhm.
I can utilize some of the privileges that like within my intersections I have, how I can speak about the systems that are marginalizing and oppressing me. And then also how can I generalize that to my clients? Because within my client and me as the analyst interaction, I am not the marginalized one, right? So like how can I also shift that understanding and that empathy and teach others to do that for our clients? And it's just so necessary. And so I think for me now, like, I don't know, there's not, I remember being an RBT being like really scared when people found out that I was a lesbian, especially like the parents, is like, you don't know like what they're going
Yeah.
to say, what they're going to do. And I think now I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, if you want to hire me, you can hire me. If you don't, that's fine too. Or if you want to consult with me, you know what I mean? I'm just like, this is who I am. But I also am not overperforming. I'm not going to show you or prove to you how smart I am, how capable I am, how whatever. Like, the proof is in the data. Um, and it's like, that's okay. But I think for me, it's like, I don't want the next generation of BCBAs, especially Black BCBAs, to kind of have to deal with some of the stuff that maybe we had to when we were like RBTs kind of overperforming, or even as BCBAs like overperforming. And so I think for me, it's so important now where I'm like, I'm putting this in my bio because I also want to model for people. I want to model for technicians or students. Like, it is absolutely okay for you to be your whole self. That doesn't do anything besides make you special and make you beautiful in your various ways. So now that we kind of have that out the way, now let's kind of figure out how we can be in community together. Now let's have some of those tough conversations. Now let me be honest with you and tell you, like, I'm analyzing this from this like Black lens, and this is what that looks like. And because we know that Blackness is a marginalized identity, my goal is to never forget that like I'm doing this on behalf of whoever that marginalized population is.
I love that. I can agree with that because I don't when another aspiring Black BCBA comes to me and asks for supervision, I'm going to try to do everything I
Yes.
can to make sure that we have some type of contact. Even if I can't be your supervisor the whole time, I want to get you started because
Yep.
that is a barrier. Or if, you're in clinic and you're burnt out, I want to give you some options because they are going to give us the toughest clients. They are going to mess around with us and not give us the supervision that we deserve. So I want to make sure that I am bringing you into spaces so you don't have to deal with the stuff that we had to deal with.
Yeah, it hits different. I think I'm happy because I think our generation, we're kind of breaking that pattern of like, because I had to go through it, you need to go through it. And I
Yeah.
think instead we're like, well, no, 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 no. Like
Team
you don't.
policy. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And we are breaking that. Like I remember you said a long time ago, you said when your supervisees, if they have to call off, they don't have to tell you why. If you
No, I don't care.
call you and you said that you was like, I don't care. I'll see you tomorrow. Or
Yeah.
I don't care. And we are so conditioned to over explain.
Yes.
I have this and I have this going on, and no is a complete sentence.
Yes. And in fact, if I'm starting to see an increase, the first thing I'm doing is looking at, okay, well, as an office or as a BCBA, as a whatever, again, like kind of going back to that whole sentiment of like, what's that quote? The rat is always right. I'm like, well, if they're always calling off, clearly some intervention that I'm doing on this like organizational level is not working. So I'm not gonna like write you up at first. I'm gonna say like, let's have a conversation and hopefully I've created a space where you can be honest and open with me and tell me like if there's some things that I need to work on, if some things maybe with your case, but like no, I'm not gonna demonize you for taking time. No, that's crazy to me.
Oh, I wish you were my supervisor. Are you still providing supervision? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be messaging
I
after.
am.
Oh, good. Well, we will definitely put her information in the description. So, speaking of no, and no being a complete sentence, you are the creator of Becoming Unquittable. The year of no is one of your newer babies or your newer projects. How do you use these projects, lifestyles, and mindsets to benefit you as a human and as a BCBA?
Yeah, so thanks to my beautiful wife, I am we have a very one of those relationships where like she'll just say the thing and I'll be like, okay, like I probably this is probably correct. And I'll be all defensive and stuff, and then I'll like take my time and I'm like, okay, I probably do need to work on this. So I say that to say I've now kind of created myself as like my own like single subject design where I'm like, okay, like let me pay attention to like my behavior. And what I learned when I started like looking at what I was doing a lot of things like thoughtlessly, like very like just not intentionally. So whether that was scrolling for hours on TikTok, whether that was every ad that came up, I was like, oh, I like that. Like I'm like a
Buy that
marketer's dream
and buy
girl,
that.
yes.
Yes.
Even as a behavioral scientist, I'm like, I know they're marketing to me and
Yeah,
it's working. Like
it's
it's working.
working. It's working. Maybe
And
they
so I
got to
was
put BCBA on their team because
listen, that have to, because I was like, this is crazy.
yeah.
And so I was like, I want to create something where, as we know as behavior analysts, like we cannot target all the things at once, or else that's going to be very just consuming. But also, you probably will have some kind of like reinforcement strain. You'll give up. And so I was like, well, let me think about some of the things that I need to work on. And instead of me like targeting like all of these things, what if I just targeted one thing a month and kind of created this way to be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this behavior. I'm going to create replacement behaviors just for this one behavior each month. I'm going to collect data on it. I can provide whatever reinforcement for myself I need. And I was like, I feel like other people, want to do this. So, like, for right now, the month of May, I think is actually the hardest month for me, where it's no buying duplicates. And so, like, if you already have it, just don't buy it. And so I am like I have like all these water bottles. I have all the things. And so it was so funny because I was at the gym, I think it was like on May 3rd, and my water bottle, like a part of my water bottle broke. And it was like an instant pattern. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go, to the website, I'll just order another one. And then like because I'm doing this, I started to think like, okay, do I want to miss a data point? Or maybe I can like look up how to fix the water bottle. Or also like I literally have probably like 30 water bottles. Like, why, what is it? You know what I mean? That I need a new one. And so it's just been really cool because not only am I now saving money and like under consuming, but I'm now just more thoughtful about like, what am I purchasing? Like, and why do I even want this? I
Yeah.
think we're kind of in this space, especially with social media, where like we're in this constant state of like fake deprivation. And
Yeah.
so everything is like, oh my God, like this shiny new thing. And I'm like, I want this and I want that. And it's like,
Yeah.
no. And so it's been really, really cool kind of watching people utilize it because they're like, oh my gosh, like I just made coffee at home this month and it tastes so good. Because what I've also noticed too is like when you get to the end of the month, it's like that need to even get the thing isn't there because you've now kind of almost like deconditioned like
Yeah.
that desire a little bit, or at the very least, you're like, do I still want this after 30 days? Like
Yeah.
after 30 days of not having it or not doing it, do I even want it? You know what I mean? So it at least kind of provides thought. So that's been really, really cool.
It is cool. And I know here on this channel, everyone is really big on how to make money, right? Everyone wants to know how to make money as a BCBA, but nobody talks about how to manage your money, how to
Yes.
spend your money, how to not spend your money. And so when I first saw it in January that you were doing this, the year of no,
Yeah.
I wonder like how much money is she saving or making
Yeah.
because she is saying just one word and sticking with it and being that single subject design.
Yeah.
So just give us January. What did you say no to in January?
No eating out.
No eating
And
out.
so, girl, I am like a DoorDash, Uber Eats, anything that's convenient, that's my thing.
Yeah.
And so you know how it is, like after a
Each
long day of
response
work.
effort.
Yes, after a
Yeah.
long day of work, I'm like, I don't even want to think. I don't want to cook. I don't want to whatever. But when I did this one in January, I was like, okay, Camille, like this is kind of intense. Like, because now you have to do something. And what was interesting about this one is number one, I love cooking. Like I
Okay.
love cooking. And it actually doesn't feel like laborious to come home and cook after work. What
Yeah.
I noticed though is that the thought of having to come home from work and cook was the thing that I was like kind of struggling with. And so I was like, okay, Jamie, like that's my wife. I was like, we are not eating out. So we just deleted the DoorDash app. We deleted Uber Eats, like all of that. And it was really cool because I was like, number one, my food tastes better than probably what I was gonna like order. You
Absolutely.
know how
Yeah.
you know how
It's
expensive like all
made
this
with
stuff is.
love.
Yes. Girl, when we realized how much money, because I refuse to look at it, and I even told Jamie, like, don't tell me the number. So I don't know the number, but she literally like looked at our like DoorDash like statements and
Yeah.
she was like, oh yeah, no, like we gotta know. And so it was cool because I was like, okay, again, like let me at least be more thoughtful about it. So that month, I probably saved between, okay, so not just DoorDash and Uber Eats, but I'm talking about like if we go out to dinner, if we're going out like for happy hour or whatever,
Even
probably
lunch
I probably saved close to $1,000.
in one
Like
month.
truly.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's really cool too is I know what some people I was like, I'm not there yet, but I know what a lot of people are doing that they told me is every time they say no to something that they would actually do. So in that case, like instead of, going on DoorDash, what they'll do is they'll kind of look at what they'd order and like just transfer that money over to their savings. So then they're actually really kind of seeing that savings and they're like paying themselves for not doing it.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. So I've
Hmm.
reading this book, We All Should Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. And
Ooh.
her strategies is like try to find a way. Well, her goal is try to find a way to make an extra $10,000 a month. I was like, okay, that's a bit
Yeah.
much. But
Yeah.
start with 1,000. And I'm thinking like, well, take on this extra income, do this thing. Or you can just say no to the things that you're
Yes.
buying. Like I buy
Hmm.
so many clothes, Cammy.
Yes.
It's not
Yes. It's crazy.
with my kids, I find myself, oh, it's Mother's Day. Everybody needs to have a matching outfit.
Yes.
Oh, it's
Yes.
graduation. Everybody, girl, you gotta go find
Yes.
what I got in the closet and stop playing with
Literally. So that was my February one, no new clothes. And what was really
that
interesting
was with me. I
is
saw that. I
I
was
literally like didn't even know I had all these things in my closet. And I was like, I literally like I had to delete Shein that month. I had
Yeah.
to delete Amazon that month
So
because I
you
was
are
like, Camille, like,
deleting the app. So you are like
yes,
increasing the likelihood that this behavior
yes.
actually occur. You're really using
Mhm.
science.
Yes, I was like, I know, because I know at this point, self-control,
Yeah.
I don't have it. Like, I don't have it. And so I was like, I actually it was really interesting because that month I found myself even donating a lot of clothes because I
Mhm.
was like, I'm not using these and that's okay. But that doesn't mean I need to like go buy more, but like let me at least shop my own closet and kind of see what that's like. But also like let's bless somebody else possibly, you know what I mean, by donating. So it's really, really interesting.
I love that. I love that. So, a quick shift. What is
Yes.
a red flag you see when you see someone heading down burnout? Because I know we were talking about
Mm,
saying no and no to
yeah.
materials, but what about saying no to extra projects or just extra
Yeah.
clients, extra work? What are some of the red flags that you can tell some of our viewers like you are heading down that path of burnout and it's going to be really
Yeah.
hard to come back from?
Well, I think for one, we have to almost like do our own kind of risk benefit analysis of stuff. So for me, I'm always like, well, at what cost? At what cost? So for example, like when I moved here, I was like, I want to make six figures, period. Like in my brain, six figures, that was like the thing. Like I want to make at least, six figures. But then I started looking at the cost. So I'm like, okay, well, how much would I have to work? How many clients would I have to have? And am I truly willing to do that? I'm not. Like I told you, I'm a lazy overachiever. I'm not, right? And so I think all of us need to kind of start conceptualizing that. Like, at what cost am I doing this? I think, too, it is okay for us to not be in a rush. And I think our generation, especially, we're kind of accused of being like in this rush of like instant success or instant money. And we were sold that, right? We were sold these degrees, all this stuff. But I think it's okay for us to kind of like look at our lives and be like, for real, like, do I have everything that I need? So if I do, what like again, why am I doing this? Like, why am I even considering taking on these new clients or, going to this job or whatever the case may be? Like, I think it's okay for us to just kind of consider. And I think lastly, I think it's okay that like we're not rich. And I think that's something that is very tough for me, I think, because again, I like a lot of things.
Yeah.
But also like that's what I was sold that like to be successful means you are rich. But then again, I started actually like looking at my finances and like looking at my W-2s and I'm like, Camille, like you are blessed. Like you really have everything you need. But before I knew that, I think some of the red flags that I saw was really like I would take on so much, so much. And again, I was getting a lot of praise for it. And it was hard for me to even figure out like, well, why is this a problem if like I'm getting maybe this bonus or if I'm getting this shout out or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, why is that bad? But I felt miserable. Like I came home, I was exhausted. I cannot tell you again, I'm deeply sensitive. So I'd be like crying at every turn. My drives home were like dead silent, where I was like, I can't consume like anything more. And I think that between like a physical cost and I think a mental and emotional cost and a spiritual cost, I would say, I think we have to really kind of zoom out and be like, for real, like, why am I doing this? Like, do I actually need it? Do I just want it? And whatever your answer is, like, that's okay. But I think we just have to kind of pause and be like, okay, for real, like, what am I doing? So I remember when we were in Hawaii, we were like paying for our wedding, and I was working full time as a school-based BCBA, which was very traumatic. And then I was also doing supervision for students full time virtually. And I was like, okay, like I want that virtual supervision money just to go towards the wedding. And so I knew I had a goal.
Yeah.
When I tell you, like exhausted, like I was exhausted, exhausted, exhausted. And of course, like my students didn't know, or my clients or whoever didn't know, but quite literally, like at the end of the day, there was nothing left of me. And
Yeah.
it got to a point where Jamie was like, listen, like, no. And so I also think too, it's okay to have like an accountability partner of like, I want to hold you accountable also to like your own goals and your own values. And like we can figure out other ways than like depletion to kind of like reach these goals, which
Depletion.
is tough though. It's tough.
Yeah, I actually had to go back and recant some of my videos on how to make multiple streams of income. And I had to
Yeah.
say, if that is what you value. But
Yes.
your values can change. So if I don't
Mhm.
have enough time to spend with my family, if I
Yes.
am having panic attacks, which I did start having after a while, if I am like at some point I had to have surgery and then I couldn't recover properly because I was
Right.
like I was just like, man, forget these jobs. At this point,
Yes.
I'm going to be a BCBA forever. Just as long as I keep re-credentialing, I'm going to find a job eventually. If I
Yes.
take a hiatus, that
Mhm.
should be the flex.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, it's like figuring out like the system that you're working in, right? Because I think a lot of us are like, I want to make all this money, and but we're not even aware of like what system truly am I working in. So like, how can I for real negotiate my salary if I don't know anything about insurance reimbursement? If I'm working in
Yeah.
insurance, like, how am I gonna? I don't know. How do I know how many clients I can ethically take on in the school if I've never even been taught again about like that system? And so I think we really have to kind of research and figure out like what am I kind of buying into? Because we all are going to have to buy into something, and that's okay. Some would argue, obviously, like we want to dismantle these systems, right? But like
Right.
we have to, right? Like, but I think it's also okay to like figure out like how much, like truly, like how much can I do? I've also been looking into like more kind of African-based practices. So things like bartering. Like I don't need, you don't have to necessarily pay me for things. Like how can we just as a community, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like kind of support each other, but it not have to do necessarily with like monetary stuff or, just kind of creative ways to like support each other. Because really community, I think, is going to be the antidote of all of this. Like, I want somebody to be like, hey, Cam, like, you're all about self-love and stuff like that. And like, you're not drinking your water or like, you're not like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, because I think it's okay that we rely on each other. And I think only when we kind of can do that consistently, like for real being community, like we're going to keep on being burnt out. We're going to keep on like just engaging in almost like these like self-harm behaviors without probably even knowing it because we're kind of chasing like this dangling thing over here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, and I feel like that sums up everything that you said so nicely. You mentioned you have an accountability partner who knows
yeah,
your values and who can reel you back in. The way that you model those boundaries for your supervisees. Now you're creating the next generation of community that can help you when you're older and you're like, wait, Cam, remember you told me to take a,
yes,
I think you need to take, you know.
yes,
We
yes.
are kind of curating this group
Mhm.
of professionals, and we are still Black professionals. Like you're going to get,
Yeah,
like you're going to be Dr. Cammie in a minute, but that still
yeah,
doesn't mean that you don't know how to take a break, work on yourself, read all
absolutely.
those books behind you, or do absolutely nothing. Go back to
That's exactly it. Yeah. I have this boundary I created where I don't do anything for anyone before I do something for myself every single day. And so for me, that literally, like, I love like going to the gym. So for me, the first thing I'm doing for the day is going to the gym. Say I need to sleep in, then I'm intentionally sleeping in. So the first thing I'm doing for me is like sleeping in. And I think what this has created is like this kind of paradigm like shift of like, no, I'm not selfish, but like I am me before I'm mine before I'm anybody else's. And I have to take care of me because I think there was a point where I was like expecting like my wife to almost like be my parent. And it's like, no, 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 no. She's like your accountability partner. So
Mhm.
you're saying this is the goal. She can kind of help you, you know what I mean? But like, no, like she's not your mom. And so I just recommend, especially as BCBAs, like the money is going to be there. We know that the companies are there. We know that the clients are there. Really kind of evaluate like, who am I? Like you opened with like, what do I really want to do? Why do I even want to do it? And how can I do it in a way that truly feels like safe and authentic for myself?
Let's do some rapid fire questions.
Ooh,
And this is just to help to see like what are your reinforcers? Okay.
okay.
Um, wine, naps, or being left alone? What do you prefer? It's like a mini preference assessment.
Ooh, wine.
Wine. Ooh, me too.
Yeah.
I can't take naps, but I think you told me to
Same.
try like a weighted blanket and see if it
Yes.
works. Still haven't tried it. I wish I can. I wish I can, but I do
Me
love
too.
wine. Okay. Most overrated ABA buzzword.
Ooh, extinction.
Ooh, sex education in ABA, revolutionary or overdue?
Overdue.
I agree. And then, who is your dream podcast or speaking engagement collab? Who's your dream collab?
Ooh, that's good. I'm trying to think like who would be like my starting five
I was
podcasts.
gonna say
So
top
okay,
three.
I
Sometimes
know.
one.
So I would say I would love to see me, you, Denisha, Danielle Beal, and Marlisha Bill. I think that would
Oh,
be like almost like waiting to exhale. I think that would be phenomenal.
let me go ahead and write a script for that right now. All of
We're
those
manifesting. We're manifesting.
really, really a few of my favorite BCBAs
Mhm.
that have at some point like, girl, let me pull
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
Let me,
Well,
yeah.
I think that's why I'm like, 'cause I feel like it would be like a big hug. You
Yeah,
know,
a
like,
warm, just
yes,
like I can
yes,
rest in your bosoms, baby.
yes, yes.
I love that. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful conversation. Oh, I cannot wait for this episode to come out. If people are looking for you, where can they find you?
Good question. So primarily like my Instagram, which is Cammie Pardon Spears, like Dolly Parton and Spears, Britney Spears. I'm on this long hiatus from Love Sex ABA, but my goal is I'm on break from school. So my goal is to start recording there. But so you can find me on Instagram there at Love Sex ABA. I can give you like my email address. People can email me.
Put in.
I'm very accessible. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you again. Thank you, Cammy. We love you, and you have to come back. You have to come.
Yes,
We got
yes, yes,
so
yes.
many more questions for you. And we'll see you on the next one. If you got anything from this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And go over and follow Cammy on Instagram, all of her platforms, and go check out her podcast because those episodes, oh, they're so juicy. They're what the field needs. Okay. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.